What happens when a nation's entire wealth is suddenly placed under the control of one man? Can a bold move for sovereignty hide a darker truth? Think about it. Have you ever seen power change someone you thought you knew? Do you truly trust that those in charge always have your best interests at heart? In the complex world of international politics and finance, such questions aren't just theoretical. They can have real, dramatic consequences. Meet President Ibrahim Traore, the young, charismatic leader who burst onto the scene in Burkina Faso, promising a revolution not just in governance, but in reclaiming his nation's destiny. Fresh off a high-stakes trip to Moscow, a visit shrouded in strategic whispers, Traore made a move so swift, so unexpected, it sent shockwaves far beyond Africa's borders. Just 24 hours after returning home, he issued a shocking financial decree, a decision with unprecedented power consolidation and potential hidden consequences that could redefine his legacy and the future of his nation. Stay with us as we unravel this story of power, money, and the potential cost of absolute control. And while you're here, hit that like button and subscribe to Magnificent Story to stay informed about the real-life intersections of power and its potential pitfalls. To understand the magnitude of President Traore's actions, we must first grasp the immense weight he carried upon taking leadership. Burkina Faso, a nation of resilient people, faced daunting challenges. Persistent insecurity cast a long shadow, with communities living under constant threat. Economically, the country grappled with volatility, its potential constrained by external factors and a history of dependency. For many, the dream of true sovereignty, of controlling their own resources and charting their own course, felt frustratingly out of reach. It was into this landscape that Ibrahim Traore emerged. Young and impassioned, he tapped into a deep well of popular discontent. His rise was fueled by promises to confront these very issues head-on. He vowed to leverage Burkina Faso's rich resources, its gold, its minerals, not for foreign benefit, but directly for the people, building essential infrastructure, improving healthcare, and creating opportunities. He spoke forcefully of breaking free from the chains of economic dependency that had long burdened the nation. The historical context of external influence was a heavy load, one Traore promised to lift. The pressure on him to deliver tangible, rapid change was immense, setting the stage for the bold, perhaps risky decisions that would follow. The moment President Traore's plane touched down in Ouagadougou, a different kind of clock started ticking. The usual post-trip decompression was non-existent. Instead, the presidential palace became the epicenter of a whirlwind of activity, hidden behind reinforced doors and guarded corridors. Emergency meetings were convened with key ministers and trusted advisors, faces grim with focus. Legal teams worked through the night, drafting complex decrees and financial mandates under immense pressure. Every detail was scrutinized, every potential loophole considered in a race against time. Security around the palace and critical financial institutions across the capital was subtly but significantly increased, a silent indicator that something monumental was underway. Yet, outside these walls, the public remained largely unaware, going about their lives while the future of their nation's finances was being rapidly reshaped in secret. The speed of these preparations was breathtaking, almost unnerving. Decisions of such national consequence were being finalized not through public debate or legislative process, but in a concentrated burst of executive action. This intense, clandestine 24-hour period was not just about logistics. It was about ensuring the decree landed with maximum impact and minimum opportunity for immediate external interference, setting a tone of unwavering, perhaps even unsettling resolve. The nation held its breath. The rumors had been swirling, whispers of a major announcement, but few could have predicted the magnitude of what was about to unfold. Less than 24 hours after his return from Moscow, President Ibrahim Traore appeared on national television, his image broadcast across every screen in Burkina Faso. The setting was simple, the national flag serving as a backdrop, but the message was anything but ordinary. His voice, calm yet resolute, carried the weight of a decision that would redefine the nation's economic landscape. Citizens of Burkina Faso, he began, his gaze unwavering, I stand before you today to announce a new chapter in our nation's journey towards true sovereignty. My recent visit to Moscow reaffirmed a fundamental truth. For Burkina Faso to control its destiny, we must control our own economic resources. He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. Therefore, effective immediately, I have signed a presidential decree establishing the National Fund for Economic Sovereignty and Development, the FNEST. The name itself was significant, a clear declaration of intent. But it was the details that followed that truly shocked the world. Traore outlined the FNEST's sweeping mandate. It would consolidate all state revenues derived from Burkina Faso's vast natural resources, its gold, its minerals, its agricultural exports. Every franc earned would flow directly into this single fund. But the decree went even further. The FNEST would also be the sole entity responsible for financing all national development projects. The construction of roads, the building of schools and hospitals, the modernization of infrastructure, even the equipping of the nation's security forces. This was not merely the creation of another government agency, it was a complete restructuring of Burkina Faso's financial architecture, a centralization of power on an unprecedented scale. The implications were staggering. Traditional budget processes, with their layers of oversight and parliamentary debate, were effectively bypassed. International aid mechanisms, with their conditionalities and external scrutiny, were rendered largely irrelevant. Even the influence of the existing central bank and foreign financial institutions operating within Burkina Faso was significantly diminished. But what happens when one entity controls all the money? When traditional checks and balances are bypassed in the name of speed and sovereignty? This is the question that now hung heavy in the air. Traore attempted to address these concerns directly, emphasizing the FNEST's commitment to transparency and accountability. He promised that the fund would be managed by a board of experts, overseen by a parliamentary committee, and subject to regular audits. However, the sheer concentration of power within a single entity inevitably raised questions about potential risks. Furthermore, Traore hinted at another significant aspect of the FNEST's operations: the exploration of alternative trade mechanisms with partners like Russia. He spoke of reducing reliance on the US dollar and exploring the possibility of direct trade in local currencies, potentially backed by Burkina Faso's gold reserves. This was a clear signal of intent to integrate Burkina Faso into alternative financial networks, further distancing the nation from the traditional Western-dominated system. The decree was a bold, audacious move, a clear assertion of Traore's vision for a sovereign Burkina Faso. But it was also a high-stakes gamble, a concentration of financial power that could either propel the nation towards unprecedented development or lead to unforeseen consequences. The world watched, stunned by the speed and scope of the change, and deeply uncertain about what the future held. President Traore's address ignited a firestorm of reactions, both within Burkina Faso and across the globe. In the streets of Ouagadougou, jubilant supporters of the young leader poured out to celebrate what they saw as a monumental victory for national sovereignty. They envisioned a future where Burkina Faso's wealth directly benefited its people, funding schools, hospitals, and infrastructure without the constraints of foreign interference. State media amplified this narrative, hailing Traore as a visionary who had finally broken the chains of economic dependency. However, the euphoria was far from universal. Economists, civil society groups, and members of the political opposition voiced deep concerns about the implications of the FNEST. They questioned the lack of transparency in its structure and governance, warning of the potential for corruption and mismanagement with such centralized control. Concerns were also raised about the risks of alienating traditional financial partners and disrupting the existing economic system, potentially leading to economic instability. Internationally, the reaction was equally divided. Western capitals and major financial institutions expressed strong reservations, viewing the FNEST as an opaque entity designed to circumvent international norms and potentially facilitate illicit financial flows. They raised concerns about accountability and the potential impact on regional financial stability. Russia, predictably, issued a statement praising Burkina Faso's commitment to economic sovereignty and offering its full support for the new fund. What do you think? Is this a bold step towards true independence, or a dangerous gamble with the nation's future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you balance the desire for national sovereignty with the need for financial transparency and accountability? While the cheers for sovereignty echoed, A different reality began to emerge in the quiet corners of Burkina Faso, a reality born from the very structure of the FNEST. Consider the story of a vital irrigation project in a rural province, a project promised to boost food security and lift communities out of poverty. Under the old system, funding might have been slow, tied up in bureaucracy or external conditions, but there were clear channels, however frustrating, for tracking its progress and allocation. Now, with all resource revenues flowing into the centralized FNEST, and it being the sole financier, the situation changed. Reports began to surface. Equipment deliveries delayed, worker payments missed, construction stalled. Local officials, once able to inquire through established ministries, found themselves hitting dead ends. The funds, now consolidated within the FNEST, seemed to vanish into an opaque system. There were whispers, rumors of funds being diverted to other, less transparent priorities, or even disappearing entirely, but with no clear public oversight or detailed accounting from the FNEST, these remained just whispers. This lack of transparency, the very thing critics had warned about, became the enabler, creating an environment where potential mismanagement or even something more sinister could occur, hidden from public view. Could this bold move for sovereignty inadvertently open the door to new forms of exploitation? What safeguards are truly needed when immense power is consolidated so quickly, and a nation's wealth becomes concentrated in a single, less visible entity? So, we've traced the dramatic events. President Traore's swift return from Moscow, the unprecedented 24-hour countdown, and the shocking decree establishing the FNEST, consolidating immense financial power. We've seen the divided reactions, the cheers of hope mixed with the whispers of concern. Burkina Faso stands at a critical juncture, its future hanging in the balance of this bold gamble. The lesson here is stark. While the pursuit of sovereignty is vital, the concentration of a nation's wealth in a single opaque entity carries inherent risks. Transparency, accountability, and robust checks and balances aren't just bureaucratic hurdles. They are essential safeguards against potential mismanagement or worse. Even the most well-intentioned shocking moves can have hidden costs, reminding us that true progress requires not just bold action, but also unwavering integrity and openness.